Good morning. How are you all today? Thank you all for visiting with us. Welcome to Bible Study with Betty and Andre. We're continuing our studies from the Gospel of Luke, and we're continuing in the 11th chapter, beginning at verse 29. We did the first 28 verses last time. And so we're looking at the same thing, the prayer life of the believer, but we're just seeing the results of what prayer does in the life of a believer through the ministry that Jesus completed when he came into the world to save sinners. And so now that he has done the events of chapter 11, verses 1 through 28. In verse 28, a woman had cried out and blessed him and said, "Blessed is the womb that bare thee, and the paps which thou didst suck." She was praising him, but he says, rather blessed are they that hear the word of God and keep it. And now he's going to continue to minister to the people and distinguish between those who have ears to hear and those who do not, meaning the religious leaders versus the people have a different motive for coming to his teachings. And they say unto him in verse 29, "And when the people were gathered thick together, he began to say, This is an evil generation. They seek a sign, and there shall no sign be given it, but the sign of Jonas the prophet." And the sign about Jonas in the book of Jonah, when the great fish swallowed Jonah, and then God vomited it up after the fish vomited Jonah up after 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale. That pointed forward to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. So that he's saying the only sign that he's going to give to an evil generation is the sign of Jonah. "For as Jonah," verse 30, "was a sign unto the Ninevites, so shall also the Son of Man be to this generation." And just this generation is speaking of people throughout the ages, from the time of Jesus' birth throughout his completion of redemption. The generation then believing speaks of all the ages, our foreparents, our great foreparents, from the time of Abraham. And so the generation is not speaking of like by names or by so many years passing. It's talking about there's a generation of people who believe, and there's another generation of people who do not believe. But the only sign that Jesus is going to give is the sign of Jonah, which points to his death, burial, and resurrection. And he says in verse 31, "The queen of the south shall rise up in the judgment with the men of this generation." Now that's Jesus' ministry began 400 years after the Middle Ages. So he's talking about the Queen of the South, which was in the days of Solomon. And the Queen of the South will condemn the men of this generation, for she came from the utmost parts of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, a greater than Solomon is here. And so this Queen of the South, what's her name? I forgot her name. The Queen of Sheba, in the life of Solomon. And those stories are in 2 Kings, I believe, and 1 Chronicles. But she came from the utmost part of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. But Jesus says, but I'm greater than Solomon. Verse 32. The men of Nineveh shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonas, and behold, a greater than Jonas is here. And so all the scriptures from Genesis to this point are speaking of Jesus, and even into the kingdom and eternal, everlasting age. And so the people of Nineveh, when you read the story, they repented when Jonah preached to them. But people of this unbelieving generation will not believe, even if they saw signs and wonders. Verse 33. No man, when he had lighted a candle, put it in a secret place, neither on a bushel, but on a candlestick, that they which come in may see the light. So he's showing us, using a demonstration or a parable, to show the purpose of light is to reveal what's in the darkness. And our hearts are either we have hearts of faith or hearts of unbelief. But a candlestick is used to shed forth light in a place. And then he says in 34, the light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when thine eye is single or healthy, thy whole body shall also be full of light. If we were blind, we could not see the light. And so our eye would not be healthy. But if our eye is single, our whole body is full of light. But when thine eye is evil or defective, thy body also is full of darkness. He's saying physically you cannot see light if you're blind, but if you have eyes, then you can see the light of everything you can see because of the working of the eyes to be able to see things. So he's saying to us in verse 35, take heed therefore that the light which is in thee be not darkness. And here he's talking about the heart of faith, or the heart of unbelief. Don't let your heart be dark. So verse 36 says, if thy whole body therefore be full of light, having no part dark, the whole shall be full of light, as when the bright shining of a candle doth give thee light. And Jesus is the light of the world, and he wants us to see him above all the darkness that is in the world. But he's talking to two different groups of people: believers, those that believed, and those that did not believe. And because in verse 37, he's going to speak directly to the Pharisee. And as he spake, a certain Pharisee besought him to dine with him. And he went in and sat down to meat or to eat. Verse 38. And when the Pharisees saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. So he's looking at what Jesus is not doing, going through ritual and ceremony. So the light in him is darkness. Jesus denounces woes upon the Pharisees. 39, and the Lord said unto him, to the Pharisee, Now do ye Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but your inward part is full of ravening and wickedness. Your heart is full of ravening or wickedness, so the light in you is darkness. Verse 40. You fools, did not he that make that which is without make that which is within also? Verse 41, but rather give alms of such things as you have, and behold, all things are clean unto you. So therefore, whatever God has created for our good, then we'll be able to see that and partake of that. And when we give alms or do charitable things, we're not doing it to be seen of men. We're doing it because we love God and want to please him. Verse 42. But woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. They're called the weightier matters in the Gospel of Matthew. He says, these ought ye have done, and not to leave the others undone. That is, God would have mercy and not sacrifice, but they take the things of this temporary life and make gods out of the things. So verse 43, he says, woe unto you Pharisees, for you love the uppermost seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets. You're on display and pretending all the time, are being hypocrites. Verse 44, woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are as graves which appear not, and the men that walk over them are not aware of them. Your doctrine and what you're teaching is like a graveyard, and people who are not in the family of God will listen to what you have to say, and they'll be like walking over dead men's bones. Then, verse 45, answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, thus saying, thou reproachest us also. And Jesus said in verse 46, woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laid or load men with burdens grievous to be borne, and ye yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers. So you're putting hardship upon the people. You're telling them and putting them under laws that you have created. And what you're telling them to do, you wouldn't do the least of what you're telling other people to do. So he says, woe unto you in verse 47, for ye build the sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. Verse 48, truly ye bear witness that you allowed the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them, and ye build their sepulchres. So you're doing the same thing that your fathers did, and how they treated the prophets that I sent unto them, to give them eternal life, but instead of receiving them, they killed them and treated them shamefully. Verse 49, therefore also said the wisdom of God, talking about himself, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute. That is, those that whose light in them is darkness. And the reason I'm doing this, verse 50, is that the blood of all the prophets which were shed from the foundation of the world may be required of this generation, that is, those of unbelieving hearts. Verse 51, from the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, which prophesied between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. Verse 52. Now, this verse lets us know that Abel was a prophet in that he brought the proper sacrifice, and that sacrifice was accepted by God. So Abel, by his conduct, proved that he had a message from God. Verse 52. Woe unto you, lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge, or the ability to receive me, and ye entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered, because of your religious and hypocritical way of doing things. You've taken away the door. A key is used to open a door and are to lock it. Verse 53, and as he said these things unto them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to urge him vehemently and to provoke him to speak of many things. They did this in verse 54, laying wait for him and seeking to catch something out of his mouth that they might accuse him. So everyone who has ears to hear what thus saith the Lord are in one generation, while those who reject him of all ages are in another generation. But the generation is not just talking about those who were living during Jesus's earthly ministry. It's people of all ages. And so I thank you all for listening. Next week we'll continue to move forward if it's the Lord's will. So you all have a Merry Christmas, and we're looking forward to a brand new year. But we can only live day by day. So you all be good and enjoy, and we'll see you next time. Bye.